Thank you, Jason, and hello, everyone. We're excited to be with you today. Just a quick introductions of who we are. I am Matt Borkowski, the Director of Business Application Sales with Arctic IT, but have spent most of my last few years as an F&O solution architect. So really excited to be joined today with John.
Yeah, hi. I have been working with Dynamics since it was Exapta and still often refer to it that way, and have worked in implementations and post go live support about the last 10 years or so. So I am life after go live and am a functional consultant.
Thank you, John. And with John's expertise providing those post-go live support services for many of our customers, he's also one of our great subject matter experts to be watching what's new, what's coming out, how does that impact our customers, and why we wanted to help bring that information with you all through MSDW today. So our agenda for today will be to focus really on those things. What's new with the latest couple of releases? And then most of our time will be spent focused on our favorite, our top 10 game-changing features. And then we won't show live demonstrate all of them, but a number of them will actually switch in and show some of those in action here. And then move on to just highlight a few things of what to expect in upcoming versions here with release 41 and 42 that are planned here in the near future. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit about Arctic IT and how we can help be a great partner for Dynamics users, and then with some time for potential questions at the end. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John just to highlight a little bit in general about what's new with version 39 and 40 of Dynamics 365 Finance.
Great. So, I mean, this is just a bit of a highlight of some of the areas that received some love in the most recent couple of updates. And these are just the most updated areas for finance. Many more updates were in supply chain management and the areas of procurement and sourcing and warehouse, et cetera, as well.
Okay, thank you, John. But really where we wanted to focus most of our time on today was diving into our top 10 game-changing features. Now, as we move into that, we thought it would be fun to do something a little bit different and to copy David Letterman a little bit, how he used to do it. So as we count down our top 10, you please forgive me and my bad attempts at trying to be a little bit like Paul Schaefer, while John really focuses on bringing that good content and then moving into the demonstration of many of those features. So with that, we've got cash and bank management. And yes, while it is last on our list, it's certainly not last in our hearts, especially for those of you that spend lots of time in the banking and treasury options. So John, tell us about what's new with cash and bank management.
Cash and bank management has gotten a lot of updates over the last couple of service releases. Just to name a couple, modern bank reconciliation feature improves the usability and performance of advanced bank reconciliation. So several new capabilities are available on the bank reconciliation worksheet, including the capability to clear reversal company transactions, generate vouchers, generate payment journals, settle open customer invoices. Bank reconciliation matching rules are enhanced to automatically run these capabilities through user-defined criteria. Petty cash is now a global feature for all countries and regions in Dynamics 365 Finance. You can use the petty cash function to automate operations for receipts and expenditures of cash, the creation of primary documents, and printing of related reports. The customer and vendor netting feature enables netting capability between open customer balances and open vendor balances. So customer and vendor payment journals are no longer created to settle open vendor and customer transactions. Instead, netting journals are now created. The auto clearing bridge transactions feature automatically clears bridged payment transactions through bank reconciliation. The transactions no longer have to be manually cleared in the general ledger. Users can set up a bridging account per bank account. Exchange rate enhancements now provide additional exchange rate type options for AP, AR, and bank foreign currency revaluation. So users can define an accounting currency exchange rate type and a reporting currency exchange rate type per legal entity, bank account, or per customer or vendor group. And the bank account lifecycle management feature now enables approval workflows for bank account activation, modification, and deactivation. It provides bank account change history for auditing purposes, and a protected field list is available to control the bank account fields that trigger the modification approval workflows, these new workflows.
I know in particular we've had folks waiting for the customer and vendor netting and the workflows for bank management for those that are creating those frequently is really nice. So glad to see those,
Right.
and thanks for highlighting those, John.
For sure.
Now moving to number 9. I've heard people say that when it comes to accounts payable, you really can't make AP sexy. But I beg to differ, and so does Microsoft. And so with that, we're going to be highlighting 3 different accounts payable features throughout today. And number 9 is recurring vendor invoices.
Right. So this feature empowers AP clerks to create and manage recurring vendor invoice templates with the definition of the invoice details, such as items, charges, posting profiles, account distribution, sales tax, etc. AP clerks can generate and post recurring invoices based on these templates without having to key in the details every time. So this is going to be super useful for things like rent, utilities, or other recurring type invoices. If we have time with all of the other features we want to demo here in a bit, we'll take a deeper look into this one.
And I was playing around with this one recently, and really appreciated for those things like rent. And we've had it for a while with things like free text invoices on the AR side. And
Right.
so I was glad to see and was really looking forward to this feature now in accounts payable.
Yeah, finally.
All right. And so we get the number 8 of additional enhanced grid capabilities. And no matter how hard we as IT professionals may try at times, you're never going to successfully be able to get accountants out of Excel, right? So rather than fighting it, we're just bringing Excel type features to them within Dynamics. And this feature number 8 certainly does just that.
Right. Microsoft has made continual updates to the what they call the enhanced grid capabilities. So every time they dump a new GUI feature, they just call it an addition to the enhanced grid capabilities to make the screens in Dynamics have more Excel-like features. So previous updates have given us the ability to have calculated values on the columns in the footer section, including min, max, total, and average. They've also given us the ability to group by or freeze columns, auto-fit column widths, or even enter math equations directly into numerical fields. The latest edition of bulk editing in grids has brought yet another time-saving addition to the enhanced grid capabilities. If you're not already aware of some of these other features, we may recap them here in a minute if we've got time. But specifically, we want to talk about the bulk editing in grids, which is the latest edition. And I think it's actually one of the coolest additions that they've made to it. So now we can select multiple rows in a grid and with a single click update all of the given column to all the same value for those selected rows. And this, in combination with the type ahead of the system feature we got from a few updates ago, gives us another really cool feature. We've always had the ability to export to Excel. And on most of the grids, we can open in Excel as well, and open that data into Excel, make changes with the Excel add-in, and then publish it back. But this new feature actually gives us the ability to paste directly into D365 from Excel or a text file or even a web page, anywhere that you can copy data to your clipboard. Then as the system starts committing that change, it'll still respect any business logic to prevent you from pasting in something invalid, to make sure you're not pasting in, garbage or, a vendor group that doesn't exist or something like that. So we'll definitely see that one in action here in a few minutes.
That's great. As someone that spent the first part of my career, focused in Dynamics GP, and all the smart list features, this is something, just seeing the way that the grids now work are just kind of blowing away some of my favorite smart list feature functionality in the past, and really excited for our customers to be able to make great use of that just to enhance their daily operations.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Now, I know the term print management in and of itself can sound really exciting, right? But
Right.
when yes, but when it gets beefed up, you can't help but get a little bit excited. So John, tell us some of what's changed now with print management.
So, print management is how we deliver reports in Dynamics, and a report is like your PO or your vendor invoice. Those are considered reports. So when you confirm a PO or post an invoice, the way that you deliver that document to the vendor is through print management, and that can be you can deliver it to your screen and save it as a PDF and email it to somebody, or like a lot of customers do, they have it set up to already automatically email those to the vendor. Let's face it, system-generated emails out of Dynamics have always been a little sketchy. With report deliveries via email from a print management config, like a PO confirmation or vendor invoices or RFQs, what you effectively get is a blank email with a PDF attachment. I mean, come on, that's the definition of spam filter bait. I've worked in post-go live support for years now, and I've had several occasions where customers have reached out saying that their vendors aren't receiving their POs or their invoices or something similar like that, and they'll put in a support ticket. Inevitably, what we discover after going back and forth with their IT departments is that it's the vendor's corporate spam filters that have blocked it because the email's kind of sketchy looking. So aside from the obvious benefit, where now we can fully brand the body of these email messages and add filter-friendly content to the body of the message itself, with the ability to use conditions, we can set up different emails with entirely different content based on any number of dynamic elements. So maybe I want to have different branding by legal entity, or maybe for some specific vendors, I might want to have very specific verbiage in the body. I could set conditional configurations by vendor group. Or so vendor group A gets one PO email and vendor group B gets a completely different messaging.
Nice.
Or even down to the specific vendor or customer. Maybe you have a special relationship with a given vendor. Your system generated PO emails can say, "Dear my favorite vendor, please see the attached PO and don't forget to call Jimmy when you ship it." Or don't forget warehouse 3, the dock is broken, or something like that. So we're going to see this one in action here in a few minutes as well.
Okay. Now, you can't spell webinar without an A and an I, especially in 2024. And so I'm happy to bring you the first of our AI-enabled top new features today.
Right. So, and I know that today's presentation is supposed to be focused on finance features rather than supply chain management, but we just really couldn't resist with an AI feature and especially a mobile app feature. The warehouse management mobile app in Dynamics 365 supply chain management includes a home screen that leverages advanced generative AI technology to provide your warehouse workers with a personalized overview of their workday. So the home screen displays crucial information, including the number of waves, total work, item sizes and weights, and remaining tasks. It offers a comprehensive chart or even a scrollable gallery of charts that show work assignments by type and priority, enabling workers to quickly grasp their day's objectives. The home screen offers insights into relevant warehouse operations, such as the number of colleagues working in the same warehouse, their identities, their last scanned locations. This fosters a more connected and efficient workspace by promoting awareness and coordination among the workers. Copilot selects and generates the information based on the individual need and relevance of information for that signed-in worker.
Oh, very cool. Continuing that generative AI use in the Microsoft applications to give you summaries and information right at your fingertips.
Right.
Great. All right, now coming in at number 5 is our second accounts payable related feature that will help us and Justin Timberlake bring sexy back to accounts payable. So tell us about the vendor invoice center, John.
This new workspace offers a view of the overall processing status of vendor invoices at different stages. So this is going to help AP managers and clerks make decisions and handle exceptions more efficiently. This is going to replace the existing vendor invoice automation workspace eventually. This is coming in a couple of phases, and we'll talk about the second phase of it when we get to the upcoming features. As of right now, it provides an intuitive view of the invoices at different stages of vendor invoice processing. It does have some AI functionality already built into it to give some of the statuses and highlight exception errors and things like that. Detailed drill down lists and Copilot integration for that exception handling will be introduced in upcoming releases. So we'll be looking at this one here in a few minutes as well.
All right, thank you. Okay, now normally if a new module came out, it would hold one of those coveted top 3 spots. But with other exciting new features, we have pricing management still at a respectable number 4.
Sure, and this is technically, as presented by Microsoft, another supply chain management feature. However, we snuck it on the list because it's really both finance and supply chain, so it absolutely counts. Increasingly, traditional businesses, B2B companies, are considering converting to omni-channel sales and selling directly to customers so that they can gain more control over pricing and margins. The omni-channel transformation causes massive changes, though, to pricing models and rules. And some of the main challenges include things like pricing silos. There's a lack of transparency across channels, and centralized pricing management is often lacking. Pricing relevancy. All the pricing factors have to be considered when B2B and B2C pricing rules are defined. Right. Pricing complexity. This can be difficult when converting to B2B and B2C pricing logic without validation. And real-time execution. The omni-channel customer experience really requires a real-time pricing calculation response. Pricing management helps B2B companies that are converting to omni-channel pricing by enabling attribute pricing rules that use attributes and data from companies, products, and order segments. This is an entirely new module in Dynamics 365, including all of the typical elements of a module: new workspaces, forms for vendor and sales trade agreements, price adjustments, discounts, and even some price simulator functions.
That's really cool, especially on the simulator side, because sometimes you're making some changes. We're used to doing some of that in Excel, maybe uploading, which those right. sorts of things, but being able to really manage it through that, simulate, see how the pricing would come out, and running that is something that I know a lot of people are looking forward to making use of.
For sure.
Now, according to the infamous Diddy Combs, it really is all about the Benjamins. So coming in at number 3 is a great way, a new feature to help us collect those Benjamins from some of our customers that get a little behind in payment.
Yeah, so we have a new workspace, the Collections Coordinator workspace in our collections area. This can be used either with or without its AI-powered Copilot function, but we are contractually obligated to suggest you enable the robot overlords. So you'll use this new workspace to get an AI-generated summary of customers' payment history and revenue, overdue invoices and outstanding debt, and remaining credit. There's also easy access to a timeline of activities for the customer, along with built-in charting, all in one place. This feature is powered by Azure's OpenAI Services large language model, and is designed to reduce the time that you spend reviewing collections details for your customers. Additionally, an AI-generated draft email, formatted like a reminder letter, allows the collections coordinator to quickly view and edit an email before sending it to their customers. We'll definitely be looking at this one.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Thank you, John. All right, now invoice capture is definitely not completely new. We've been talking about it for a while in the Microsoft space, seeing versions of it coming out. I've interacted with many people in what was the preview, and now into the other Yammer groups about it. But it does keep getting better. And really few things make accounts payable, especially working in accounts payable, sexier than maybe not having to do it as much, letting the machine
right.
do some of it for you, right? And so, and with that, Microsoft continues to weave in more of the AI features. So, John, what are some things that are new with invoice capture?
Right. So, invoice capture enables the capability to capture a vendor invoice from an email directly into Dynamics 365. It utilizes AI technology and OCR to read different invoice formats from vendors without really requiring much human intervention. The invoice is successfully recognized by AI Builder, mapped to invoice fields, automatically updated and validated according to rules that you define, and then converted to a vendor invoice directly in D365. Previously, to get some of this functionality, you've really been required to purchase and install a third-party ISV, and some of these ISVs aren't cheap. Microsoft has really stepped up the game here by including some of these features in the base product now. We'll be putting this one through its paces here in a few minutes. So what do we have for number one, Matt?
Well, in full transparency, Copilot wasn't our original number one feature, but in 2024, as you said earlier, we really are, as a Microsoft partner, contractually obligated to mention Copilot in a webinar at least once every 5 minutes. And so our hands were tied. This had to be number one. So why don't you tell us about it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, perhaps it went without saying, but the Copilot sidecar was always going to be number one on this list. This on-demand sidecar provides operational support right within the application using a natural language chat conversation experience. So users can use plain language to ask how to complete various tasks, like how can I send my sales order to the warehouse for picking? How can I reopen a closed inventory period? How can I commence cycle counting? Users can also ask for help to configure business processes. For example, which fields should I fill out for an item before adding it to a sales order? How can I set up lead time management? It's also possible to get more information about key concepts in both finance and supply chain management, such as what are storage dimensions used for? What are vendor groups used for? What are dimension segments? This is going to be an absolute game changer, both for experienced users, but I think even more so for new user adoption. Training new users on a system as complex as Dynamics can be challenging, and the traditional built-in help functions tend to lead you to contextually thick and heavy online documentation, which can be confusing. Or users might be required to reference training materials or quick reference guides and then flip back and forth between those documents and the application, and that can be disruptive. With the operational support right within the application, users can ask plain language questions and get plain language answers, vastly speeding up new user adoption time. Additionally, Copilot can be extended with X++ by your in-house or partner developers as well. So with Copilot Studio, you can extend the functionality even further. So Matt, let's say we just jump right in and see a few of these features in action.
That sounds good. Thank you, John. Give me a second here as I switch, and I'll start by showing some of the first few things here. Okay, so here we are in our Arctic IT sandbox, and while we started with counting down from 10 to 1, we kind of start demonstrating in the reverse order, starting with our number one, the Copilot sidecar. So we see here, once it's enabled in the upper right-hand corner, we click on that to open this up, and then we can start asking questions. And the key thing to understand, as John was saying, is for now anyways, the Copilot sidecar is about helping you learn how to use Dynamics 365. It is not yet enabled, for the most part, to start querying the data in your system or asking questions about the information in Dynamics 365. Some of that is definitely coming with later in 2024, the sales data and inventory availability data, those things will start rolling into where you can ask questions via the Copilot sidecar. But for now, some of the items that you mentioned, just trying to remember, how do we get to something? How do we do something? How can I send a sales order for picking? And so now this is bringing in data from the model in Microsoft Learn, other things like that, and then keeping some of it in, available inside the system. So it's telling me, how to go through that process. Go to sales order, select the sales order you want, click and pick and pack. The types of things that people that are using this on a day-to-day basis probably know, but for those that maybe haven't done it before, they're filling in for someone who's out. They're wanting to double check how to do this. They're new to the system. It really makes it easier to ask these questions, to get these answers, and not have to go look through other documentation to do so. And at the same time, you can even click on those links to take you right to like the Microsoft Learn document here to help with providing additional information.
Well, and I'll give you a spoiler alert of something that's coming on one of the later slides about new features. Later in 2024, there's going to be additional buttons in there that'll actually take you to those documents or those forms in Dynamics. So you'll be able to navigate using Copilot as well. Hey, I can't remember where this thing is. Eventually, it's probably going to replace the search function that we have today.
Absolutely, I agree. And when you start thinking about like trying to learn about functions in the system as well, maybe you haven't really used storage dimensions in the past, you're trying to wrap your hand around it, like what are storage dimensions used for? And again, it's going to give you a nice summary of storage dimensions and provide that link to take you to documentation for more information.
That's great.
So, and again, as we start to see things, we'll be able to ask questions when the additional features start rolling out. Like, how much inventory do I have for item ABC? Or if you're, item 1000, so you can see how many Surface devices you have, right? If you're in the Contoso environment, things like that. And it really is looking forward to being able to use more of it. Seeing this first iteration of it come out and be available is really exciting. And as we talk through some of the sidecar or other AI-enabled features, again, why don't we take a step over to looking at invoice capture. Now, let me refresh this since it's been open for a little while.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, absolutely.
One question here. Just someone was wondering what version you were using here, or were using.
Oh,
this is 10.0.40. So this is the very most recent version. This is on .40.
Thank you, John. All right, so as we come into invoice capture, we also see the Copilot along the right side. Now, some of this with invoice capture already is based to take a look at some of the information you have in the system. So where it is asking questions of your data itself. So I could ask a question like, how many invoices have we captured this year? And as this is just our demo environment right here, we haven't sent a lot through it, but it's going to tell us that so far we've captured 5 invoices. But you can also ask other questions, reference data, things like we saw in the Copilot inside of finance itself. But for those that haven't really used Copilot, or maybe have dabbled with it, invoice capture, but have dabbled with it a little bit, it's nice to know that it does continue to improve with the installation of version 40 here, as well as updating the latest versions of accounts invoice capture. I've seen some cool new features, including things like if I go to the setup of the system and I take a look at system preferences. Up until now, your only option has really been to use the invoice processing model, the AI builder model that Microsoft has available. And still, I think most people will do so, but you do now have the option for those that are sophisticated enough, have the team to do so, to start building your own invoice processing model with your own invoices and those things, and have it look at that rather than using the publicly available invoice processing model. As well as the ability over here, it's been here for a little bit, but now do you or do you not want to use continuous learning? Because the continuous learning, what happens in this might feed into that publicly available invoice processing model. If there's things about that that you do not want to have part of that, then we can turn this off, right? So those two things combined, I think, are some of my new favorite options here. The ability to start looking at creating your own model, but if you stick with the public one, but you don't want the invoices that come into your system and the changes and updates that you make to incorporate into that continuous learning, you can turn that off.
And eventually, if I start using my own model, we'll be able to set our own model to learn, right?
Correct. Yes, you've got that.
That's great.
So going back to the home screen here, just a couple of quick things. I have this set up to monitor my own email inbox to capture and bring in attached PDFs with the word invoice in them. So that way it knows, hey, here's an invoice we've captured, and start bringing it in. For those that haven't seen this in the past, I now have the option. Let me turn this and to say I want to see all invoices. I can see that on the 11th here, a couple days ago, I emailed myself 2 invoices. One of those just says captured, and one of those says transferred. The transferred means that as it came in, I did not have to do anything with this because it was able to pull off all of the information. And it was able to, within my established thresholds that I said, I'm comfortable with this, go ahead and send this through, validate, read the information off of it. What is the invoice number? Who is the vendor? What PO was it, and what were the items that were being invoiced off of that? It read that all automatically. And because I had said I was comfortable within certain thresholds of the confidence that invoice capture and reading those, it automatically transferred that and sent it into Dynamics 365 as a pending vendor invoice. So if I open that up, it will take me to that pending vendor invoice screen, and I see that this is vendor invoice that ended with 6/11 because of the date. We see right here that vendor invoice for PO 125 is listed right here. So when I open that up, it's going to show me not only the invoice and the information off of that invoice that it was able to read and come through, attached to the PO and the items that received, but also show us and bringing in that image from that it captured as part of the process. However, I did send a second invoice that you see here is just listed as captured, which means that, look, it was not able to read a lot of the information off of it or match it to the data that I have within the system. So right. At this point, I could come in and start that review, make the corrections, and then when ready, transfer that into Dynamics 365. Again, the ability to use this up to a certain number of invoices to get started with, to play with, is something that I think more customers that don't already have an accounts payable solution, automation solution in place, will be able to take advantage of in your future.
This is great.
All right, now we also talked about collecting those Benjamins and some of the new AI-enabled features for that. So I'm going to turn off the sidecar and switch into credit and collections. And under workspaces, we have that new workspace called Collections Coordinator. And even if your organization doesn't have a robust collections process, if you're not tracking through activities and letters and tasks and everything associated with that, there's still a lot of great functionality to use in this. If you do have kind of an established collections process, you do have the ability to track those activities, see what's assigned to you, close them out, and work through that task-oriented process of following up with what's there. But even the ability to come in here and very quickly search through and sort on different customers and their balances and see different aspects associated with that is quite helpful. So if I sort it here by my customer accounts and Forest Wholesales, for instance, I see that they have a current balance of $67,000, still well within their credit available, but I want to see more information about that. So clicking on Forest Wholesales will kind of dive into that and initially use Copilot here to give us a summary of their balance, saying what their current balance is. We haven't sent them anything within the last 6 months. Payment history shows that the last payment, all these things. And despite having a credit amount of $304,000 remaining, the overdue amount lacks consistency in on-time payments. So it gives us a nice summary really quickly of what's going on across that account without us having to drill into different things, as well as showing me that customer timeline of when letters are sent, when the last payment was received, other events going on with the customer, all within one spot. Let's say we did want to send a reminder and reach out to Forest Wholesales. I can start that process by just create reminder email. So when I click on that, it's going to tell me, hey, this is going to use AI to create a reminder email. When I say yes, here it opened up my Outlook, brought
Cool.
in the email address from that contact, gave it a subject, and put some of that same information in. It at least starts us with a spot. In this case, maybe I really like this, or I know Ben pretty well, so I make a couple of changes to this. He goes by Ben, not Benjamin, and I can make other changes to this, but it summarizes it very nicely, starts the process, and makes it much quicker to send that initial email and track those activities going forward with with your customers that are behind on payment.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, with that, John, why don't I switch over to you, make you presenter, so you can walk us through some of the additional functions we want to demonstrate today.
Sure. Okay, we're going to show my big screen, so I'm going to flip over to this side. Okay, so let's look at the new vendor invoicing center. So vendor invoice center, and you'll notice the tiles look a little different than workspaces in the past. And if we contrast that, now eventually this new vendor invoice center is going to replace vendor invoice automation. But these are the tiles that you're used to. The blue tiles with the counts on them, things like that. One of the dead giveaways on new workspaces, if there's AI features under the hood, is it's this new white tile format. So these are using AI to produce some of these counts in here of, something with errors or, if it's got certain types of exceptions. And these will grow. There are certain possible elements that I'm not seeing because they don't meet that criteria at the moment. I might have one with a different type of error or something like that. But it's the same general view that I'm used to seeing in my vendor invoice center, but with additional functionality to bring in error handling and to really show me throughout the stages of an invoice. Now, one of the things that's going to be happening, again, I mentioned this is kind of a phase one of this new vendor invoice center. So later in 2024, in either 41 or .42 update, that we're going to be getting detailed drill down lists and Copilot sidecar integration for the exception handling. So like right now, I can click on one of these and see that I've got one for my approval. This one was apparently kicked back to me, and I can submit it or look into the workflow history or whatever I want to do. I can see that I have one with an error, and I can click on it and go to it. In a future version, though, within the sidecar, it's going to show me some of that error information, and I can work that and mitigate that right in one place. So I won't have to go back to the pending invoice or go somewhere else or open up other things. Everything will happen all in one place within the sidecar, and that's going to be the target of a lot of the sidecar integration that happens over the coming months and throughout 2024 and into 2025. Is the focus is going to be moving a lot of functions that currently require you to go to one or two or three places to get the full picture, and put everything in one place with specific actions that you can take to mitigate whatever problems that you're having, all without leaving where you're at.
Nice.
So this is great. So the next one I wanted to show, we were talking about the emails coming out of Dynamics, and within print management settings, and there are print management settings in AR and AP in a variety of places. And these are where we determine how the documents that we send, the reports that we send to customers or vendors or whatever. So like a PO is a report and a vendor invoice is a report. So I can have my vendor invoice, right now it's at default. So it looks like when I post a vendor invoice, maybe it's going to go to the screen and I'm going to save that. And maybe I'll email it manually to my vendor. But I can set that up to go to email. And like with purchase orders, right now I have it set to automatically go to email. So when I hit confirm purchase order, what it's doing is it's sending that PDF to the vendor as an email. as an email attachment, and the @ means, obviously that I'm sending it to the default email on the vendor. And I could have different things in here. I could have it go to a specific contact purpose, like @remit to or @confirmation or whatever. I can set up whatever ones I want. But traditionally, this is what you receive is literally a blank email that says file attached, and those are they're spam filter bait. Is all they are, and it's a constant hassle where sometimes we have to tell our vendors, hey, you need to go explicitly whitelist us so that our emails with our POs or vendor invoices make it through to your recipients. And more IT departments at these vendors are reluctant to do that. They're using third-party email filtering systems, and they don't want to go in there and explicitly whitelist something. So now, since .39, we have the ability to fully brand these and put, email filter-friendly content in here. But one of the cool things that we can do with this, now that we have the ability to do this, in conjunction with, we've always had this feature. If I come in here and do a new one and set a condition on it, so for example, let's say, here I'll go join this to the vendor table. So we'll join that to the vendors and then go back to my range. And now if I add in and say on the vendor table, look for group, vendor group or something like that. So vendor group. There we go. And then say vendor group 20. Okay, so now I can say for vendor group 20, use this content. But I may set up a completely different one for vendor group 30. Or I may have multiple companies and I want to brand my emails by company. By legal entity. So I can do the exact same thing. I can have one set of branding for this legal entity versus that legal entity. I may have where I want to do a very specific email for just a given vendor or customer. And I can do that as well. I wouldn't do that here. I would go to the vendor and I can do a print management setting specific to a vendor or customer. And that's really going to be, a communication and branding shift from the way that these emails have gone out before. Similar to invoice capture, the ability to do some of these functions has traditionally been something that requires a third-party ISV like Doccentric or something like that. But this is all part of the base product now. Okay, so let's do another one here. Let me throw open a new session now. Some of these things, talking about the extended grid controls, some of these things you may not even be aware were things that were delivered previously. But for example, if I look at my vendor transactions, they've already given us the ability to add in a footer and do things like sums. So I can, sum on this, and if I start selecting individual ones, it'll sum only that, or if I don't have anything selected, it'll sum the whole page. And I can do things like, my view is really wide, so maybe I want to retain this like I do in Excel and freeze this column. I can do that. I can freeze that column. If I want to add this to my freeze, I can do that, and it'll actually move that column over here to the frozen section. Things like that. I can unfreeze that column. I can group by this column, and it'll group things now. So I can, say only show me, that stuff, and I can group by any of these columns, things like that. But one of the new things that we've gotten is the bulk edit, and the bulk edit thing is really cool. So if I look at my vendors here, I've always had the ability to export this, so I can, I can click my Office button and I can open in Excel and send it out to the vendor's V2 and use the Excel add-in to, so let's say I want to change, I'll add a couple of things on here. I want to add buyer group And so buyer group and chain, I'll add those on here. Let's say that I wanted to update the buyer group on these three and not that one, and then that one, but not that one, and then that one. I want to update the buyer group. I can make those changes in the Excel add-in and then import them back into Dynamics with the publish, and that's very easy. Or right from here, now I have this ability. I can say edit selected rows, and okay, well, which field? Okay, buyer group, and make them all 10. And there it goes. And you notice it turns it in italics while it's doing it. That's writing to the system. So I'm doing type ahead of the system, which is a function that we got a few updates ago. And as it's committing those changes, then it takes it off of the italics. And if, for example, I did that same thing, so let's just do these two. So we'll do these two. If I was doing something that had some business logic behind it, so in this case, we're going to change the group, and we're going to change them all to, I didn't see what they were before. They're 30 now, so we're going to change them to 40. So if I change the group to 40, there's a dialog that I have to answer now that says the vendor group change, do you want to apply the default dimensions? Oh, okay, yes, I do. So it's going to pop that dialog box. So it's going to respect any of the logic in the background to keep me from making some, horrible mistake. Now, this is all cool, but what I thought was one of the coolest things was because I can type ahead of the system. So, I could even, just come here and blank these out, and just arrow up and down and blank these out if I want. Because I can type ahead of the system, I can just copy and paste stuff right from Excel into Dynamics. So now if I just copy this group of rows over here and paste that in, it pastes them all, and they'll, it goes into italics. I can see my little status over here. It's writing to the system. And it doesn't have to necessarily be Excel. I can do it from Notepad. I can do it from a web page. I can do it from anywhere, and paste in as much information as I want. So this is a really, really cool feature. Opening in Excel and using the Excel add-in, users love that. I do too. I use it all the time. But a simple edit like this still takes 3 to 5 minutes with the Excel add-in. If I do that 10 to 20 times a day, at the end of the week, that might be hours. Over the course of the year, that might be days of time turned into minutes. This took 5 seconds. So, I thought that was a really cool little freebie feature that we got too. So let's shift gears and look and see what's coming in future releases. What's that?
Hey, John, we had one question, and you may not know off the top of your head. We don't need to go into it in depth, but question said, is there a way when you've grouped those rows, you were showing some of the general features and you say group by, do you know if there's a way to just collapse all of them at once?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there is. It's really super easy. So I'm right here. So I'll go back to my transactions. Let's say that I grouped by this column. Once I group by, I get additional options that didn't exist before over here in the ellipses, and I can say expand all groups, or I can say collapse all groups, or I can say ungroup because I didn't want to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. So as we start using some of these new features over here, the ellipses will hold the commands for whatever feature I have selected in here. So yeah, good question, but yeah, super easy.
All right, so terrific. Thanks for showing that.
Let's shift gears over here and go to back to our presentation here. Okay, can you see my what's coming in version 41 and 42? I lost my other screen, so I'll have to trust you.
Looks great.
Okay, okay. So coming soon, navigate and search using Copilot and Finance in Finance and Operations. So Copilot will provide the ability to navigate directly to pages. So again, I think this is going to be an absolute game changer for new user adoption and training. It's obviously going to be very useful, and training was probably not primary on Microsoft's mind when they started making the Copilot features and things like that and deciding what to add into it. But just the fact that, like I said, I've worked in post-go live support for years, and I see immediate value in just the training aspect alone. Other things, so inquire into inventory with Copilot. So the inventory visibility service will interact with Copilot in D365 supply chain to provide natural language inventory search capabilities. So, how many 10 millimeter ball bearings do I have in warehouse 12? I don't have to go click through umpteen screens. It's just going to be right there in the Copilot. Demand planning is going to get forecast insights and the ability to explore trends, anomalies, influence factors, all using natural language through Copilot. Invoice posting with split distribution steps. This is it sounds unimpressive, but what they're doing is taking the financial dimension accounting distribution portion of the posting process, which is the most system-intensive process, and splitting that to a separate function. So we've all had that posting dialog box that stays up on the screen for several seconds or even minutes on big invoices or big journals. Currently, they're going to be doing it just for vendor invoices at first, but eventually it's going to be going to all postings. We're going to be seeing a lot of improvements over the coming months where system-intensive operations are going to split off to a separate process under the hood to improve front-end performance.
Nice.
We're going to get a workflow history summary. The new workflow history is going to give us a lot of the information that we have to drill deeper into a workflow history to see, like who it's waiting on or what the most recent processes were, things like that, as opposed to just status. We're going to be able to see a lot of information right in the Copilot sidecar. Customer page summary. So this is going to give us an AI-generated summary of customer data, sales orders, sales agreements, rebates, overdue invoices, delayed lines, etc., right on the customer page. The vendor invoice center that we just saw is going to get some Copilot integration to give us error handling and things like that. And then mobile apps. We're going to be seeing enhancements to mobile apps for warehouse management, PO requisition, and inventory visibility right in our mobile devices with generative AI and Copilot. And of course, much more, since Microsoft has moved now to quarterly updates. Each update is going to be fairly jam-packed with new features. Because there's only 4 a year, so they're just going to be crammed with new features. And you can expect AI and Copilot integration to be a huge part of the roadmap for the foreseeable future. So I'm going to hand the mic back over to Matt for a minute to talk about Arctic IT.
Yes, and John, I think you only said Copilot 6 times there. We may be a little below quota, so
I know.
I'll do my best to. That was great. Right, and thank you, John, for really helping us to understand, learn more about some of the new features, and that's one of the things that we're really excited about helping our customers with at Arctic IT. For over 20 years, we've been laser focused on providing the best in Microsoft solutions for our customers. In recent years, fully focused on Microsoft Cloud implementations and support using best practices in our proven approach. We are called Arctic IT because we were originated in Alaska. And we are very proud of our heritage being owned by the Alaska Native Corporation of Doyon. So our shareholders are the indigenous Alaska Native from the central region of Alaska. And through that, we've had the privilege over the last 20 years of working with many different government and commercial entities. And based on that, and go ahead and move to the next slide there, John. Through that, one of the things we really wanted to talk about today is the level of support that we really provide and offer for our customers. So while we might be a little silly when discussing some of the top new features, we're dead serious when it comes to providing world-class support services for our customers. And that managed service support offering is what we brand Arctic Ascend, which provides a full range of services to help our customers make the best of their Dynamics 365 investments. and that's being done via folks like our great support consultants like John across our Arctic Ascent team. That's 100% based in the United States. And who knows, working with us means you often get to work with John himself. So as you can see, with folks like him, your customers get the top support in that. So we work tirelessly to do that. So whether you're already on Dynamics 365 and potentially looking for a support partner, or if you're planning to make that migration from AX or other Dynamics legacy solutions, we'd love to chat to see how we can help.
For sure.
And we're thankful for the opportunity to be part of the Microsoft Dynamics world today and be part of bringing those resources as we make such great use of those resources ourselves, just to help sharpen our tools, our abilities, learn about things like this, what's new, and connect with other people in the area. So if you go to the Arctic IT page in Microsoft Dynamics World, you can see some of our videos, documents, ask us questions. We'd love to connect with you as we use this to connect with so many others.
For sure. So, I'm not sure if we have any other questions. I did notice one question that was in the chat, and I honestly, I apologize. I don't use GoToWebinar that often, so I think I answered it correctly. But we'll see. The question was, can the bulk edit feature be controlled by security? Absolutely. You can remove that privilege from certain roles if you wanted to restrict that access, just like any other privilege in the system. It's very simple to do so.
And I did see a question coming out about vendor invoice capture and the costs associated with that. I believe that is based not on the number of lines processed, but on the number of invoices itself being processed. And so, I think just with the licensing to begin with, you're allowed to use 100. And capture and process 100 invoices a month without paying additionally. But from there, depending upon the number, there's consumption charges that are applicable based upon the number of invoices that you process through that. Great question.
Mm-hmm.
And as we talked a minute ago about our Arctic Ascent offering, there is an available flyer within the handout section of the GoToWebinar. So if you want to learn more about that and the services provided, please take a look at that there.
Okay.
All
right. Well, we squeezed every drop out of the clock, but I appreciate everybody's attention, and I hope you learned something today.
Yes, thank you for leading us through this, John.
Yeah, great job to both of you. Thanks to everyone in the audience for your attention and all the questions that came in. We really appreciate those. If you have any others, obviously don't hesitate to reach out. We've been recording today's event, and we'll be making that available to all of you. As Matt mentioned, there is a handout you can download, and we have a couple questions as you exit. If you could take just a moment to fill those out, we'd really appreciate your feedback there too. So with that, I think we are ready to wrap things up. Was there anything else, Matt or John?
Just thank you once again.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, great job. Thank you
as well.
And we will conclude things there. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye now.